And we're on.
Alrighty. Good afternoon. I'm going to get ready here and see who is joining us today.
About 10 seconds away. That's not bad.
I feel like Mr. Rogers. Welcome to my neighborhood.
You're missing the creepiness and the tweed jacket.
Oh, okay.
Especially the tweed jacket.
Especially the tweed jacket, okay.
It brings the creep.
Oh, I see. Okay, gotcha.
You're not truly creepy unless you're wearing a tweed jacket with elbow pads.
Gotcha. Okay. Why is everything doing that today?
See if we get a little more speed here.
Yeah, because...
Okay. I came back up as soon as you did that.
Oh, okay, so both of those are down. I'm not going to be able to see people's comments today, so you're going to have to relay them to me.
You got it.
We got 7 minutes, 21 seconds to go.
I find the show more interactive when I'm yelling at you.
Oh, okay.
Don't you?
I do sometimes, yeah. So today we are talking about color science, and we're going to talk about the tools that you need when you're starting to paint. So we're going to get into that today. I think we've got, is everything moving along okay over there?
Not okay.
Because nothing else is on. I think we're getting a little bit of glitching over on Facebook, it looks like. But that's okay. We'll deal with that as we go. So we're going to talk a lot about paint today, what type of paint. I'm going to use some paints that you can buy and some paints that I have here that should not probably be here because they are so damn old. But they're an alternative to buying more expensive, higher quality paints, and we're going to talk about that today. I can't see your questions today, so you'll have to bear with me. For whatever reason, everything's kind of funneling down on our stream today. I don't know why. So I've closed the stream on my end over here, so I can't see what's happening. But our good fellow Frank can see what's happening, and he'll relay your messages to me today.
Facebook is almost a minute and a half behind.
It is, eh? Okay.
Or I mean, almost, or 5:40. Yeah, it's almost a minute and a half behind. Almost didn't believe it when I said it.
So what have we got there on Facebook? Just people saying hello?
Yeah, everybody's saying
Okay.
hello. We got Lorenzo,
Hello.
Jerry, Linny, Emilio, Graham. I don't want to pronounce that wrong.
I've probably pronounced it wrong a couple of I pronounced it wrong a couple of times. I don't know. It's French.
Grand Forlage.
Grand Forlage.
Do you believe that I'm French?
Well, so am I.
I can't even affect the proper accent.
So am I. And I don't say a boot because that's something that goes on your foot. I say a boat.
And we don't come about.
It's like I don't say roof because that's what dogs say. I say roof. I guess a deeper sounding dog would say roof.
That's pretty rough.
That's pretty rough. For a roof that could be a roof.
Chris has joined us. Chris Garrett.
Chris Garrett. Welcome, Chris. Chris was going to come shoot with me over the weekend, but he was feeling very, very sick. I hope he's feeling better.
Still feeling a little bit.
I hope he's feeling better. So this is one of those shows where people really want to know about paint. And that's what we're talking about today. Paint, paint, paint. If you've got any questions, now is the time to put them in the chat. Can you see the chat for YouTube as well?
Mm-hmm. Oh, wait.
Just slide it over. There you go.
There it is.
There we go. Who do we got on YouTube today?
YouTube. Of course, Mr. Fred Kaz.
Mr. Kaz, hello.
Don the German.
German printing nerd Don.
Daniel.
Daniel.
And Jerry's project.
And Jerry. Oh, Jerry. That's Jerry Knapp. Jerry's project is Jerry Knapp. So he's on both sides of the...
He's everywhere.
He's everywhere. Jerry Knapp is everywhere.
Graham Forlage is English.
Oh.
He's laughing at us because we're calling him French.
Oh. Oh, I thought you were French. I'm sorry. I apologize.
He needs to type in a phonetic spelling of his name.
He was probably laughing at me when I pronounced his name on the last show.
I think a name like that you can pronounce different every single time and never repeat yourself. Frederick just came online.
Oh, good. Do you know if you ingest additives, Golden's Artist Color additives, you have to call the Poison Center? And rinse with water within 15 minutes. And what about this one? Well, this one doesn't come with a poison warning, but this stuff does. And we're going to talk about this stuff today. I'm going to just switch my camera so you guys can see what's on my desk. What have I got here today?
I'm sure everybody's seen those basics paints.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure they have too.
I wish I was the guy that owned that company.
Yeah. Well, it's Liquitex. It's a big company. It's been around for a long time.
And they're everywhere. Their marketing must be phenomenal because they just at least in the blue collar. Jason Dali is watching.
Jason, how are you, sir? Jason Dali. I probably messed that one up too. I'm just going to call you Jay.
I would imagine his actual name is Jason Dali.
Yeah,
Jason
probably.
Daly, and then you split it up for Facebook because we all do funny things on Facebook.
Yeah, we all do funny things on Facebook.
Oh, Graham. That's his name. Not
Graham.
Tom Green. It's Graham.
Graham.
It's just a really cool way to spell it.
Okay. I will call you Graham from now on. And Jay, I will call you Jay, not Graham.
Painting with airbrush and acrylic paint, what thinner and or cleaner should I have, Richard?
Oh, who'd that come from?
Don, the German printing dude. He's got to wait a minute and a half.
Yeah, you got to wait a minute and a half for that answer. We are going to talk about that. And I'm going to actually show you an inexpensive way to make cleaner. Actually, I'll go and get 2 things that I need for cleaner.
1 minute.
Yep, I'll be right back. I need this, and I need this. I am back, I am back, I am back. Are we on?
Nope.
No, 35 seconds. Woo! Geez, you had me scared there for a minute.
That's changing up a little bit. Now that I can do that without the timer coming off.
Okity okity.
All right, intro.
And we're going to get going here in less than 10 seconds. Go back to my camera. Ha 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 ha. Well, happy Monday to you all. My name is Richard Cleveland. You guys know who I am. Welcome to the first layer. This is Coffee with Rich, as we do every Monday. And if you're new here, please hit that little subscribe button down at the bottom, because we are only 4 people away from hitting 250 subscribers. And hit the little bell, by the way, as well, because that'll allow you to get notified every time we put up brand new episodes and do live streams like we do twice a week. So today you guys are all here wondering, what in the heck are we talking about? Well, we are talking about painting today, painting your 3D models, as a matter of fact. Just going to go quickly to my desk here. And you can see I have a collection of paints on here. I also have a primed Pennywise. He's not completely primed. I just did a quick priming on him this morning, kind of see any defects that I have on him, and we are going to almost start painting him today. But first and foremost, I want to talk about paint. The biggest thing I get is, what type of paint do I use, and what will make my prints look a lot better? Well, what will make your prints look a lot better is taking the time to paint them, plain and simple. And one of the more inexpensive paints that you can use is this Americana paint. You can find this pretty much at any hobby store. Walmart, I believe, carries it. You can find it at most dollar stores as well. It's called Americana, and it's just an acrylic paint. Now, this is a really old bottle of acrylic paint, and it was sitting in a box for a long, long time. And it's pretty solidified. I also have an old yellow here as well. But first and foremost, let's talk about the paints that are on my table. I'm going to move this little thing of water out of the way because we're going to talk about that in a little bit, and we're going to talk about brushes as well. So first and foremost, let's move all the stuff out of the way that we need. The three basic colors that you need first and foremost are blue, red, and yellow. With those three colors, you can basically make any color on the color wheel. Whether you want to make them darker or lighter, that's where your black and your whites come in. So you can naturally lighten any one of these colors or any mixture of these colors with white, and you can naturally darken them with black. There are a couple things that you can do to make your colors pop a little bit more, and we'll discuss that in a little bit. Right now, I just want to turn it over to my computer screen. And on my computer screen right now, you can see a color wheel. Now, this is a great tool to have. I don't have mine here in the studio today. It's at home. But this color wheel, as you can see, it has two pieces of cardboard, and they actually will rotate around to give you mixtures of different colors and get you into where you want to be. Now, your primary colors are red, yellow, and blue. Those are the basic colors, and they can be made to mix any color on the color wheel. Again, black is an absence of color, and white is all of the colors in the spectrum, just so you know that. So, going back to my camera shot here real quick. Yeah, go back to my camera.
Sorry, you confused me with that last one there. Okay.
Oh, sorry. So when you have these three colors, so red, blue, and yellow, and these are the Liquitex Basic. This is primary yellow, this is primary red, and this is primary blue. Now, I recommend the Liquitex. These are acrylic paints. These are not oil paints, so be very aware when you are going into your art store to pick up any of these. You can get these at Michael's too, I believe. Be aware that these are acrylic paints and they are not oil-based paints. You want to paint your projects with acrylic-based paints. And we'll get into the reasons why in just a little bit. Now, this is the 118 millimeter tube. You can get these in much smaller tubes as well. I think this size was only about $7. You can look that up. You can even get these in full color packs of the smaller tubes off of Amazon. So go and check those out. But you want to start with the three basic colors. So you want to start with yellow, red, and blue, and add a black and a white to your mix, and then you've got pretty much every color that you're going to need. Now, we'll talk about mixing these in just a second. I'm just going to push these off to the side real quick. And let's talk about these other ones that you see in front of me. Now, here we have red oxide. Now, I use red oxide when I'm doing areas around the eyes. It's a really nice color to use to give you that sort of skin type of texture around the eyes, or skin coloring around the eyes. Because if you look inside your eyelid, it's not the same color as your skin pigment is. And this makes it really nice to line the eyes, or getting that little dot in the corner of the eye, like right in there. There, let me go back to this camera. So what I'm saying is, when you want to get in around the eye, what I would do is I usually paint it with this red oxide first, and then I go in and I paint the eye, and I'll do stuff like that. So now we also have burnt umber, or burnt sienna, pardon me, and raw sienna. These are two different browns. This is a little bit more of a red brown. This is more of a yellow brown. I like to use these colors when I mix these when I'm doing skin colors. And with both the raw sienna and the burnt sienna, as well as raw umber and burnt umber, which are both sort of darker browns. One's more of a red brown, and the other is more of a greens kind of brown. These two are great for doing mixtures of African American skin tones. You can lighten them up certainly with the raw sienna and the burnt sienna. You can also make Asian skin tones as well, and you can do a variety of different skin types with just those four colors. So that's something to keep in mind. We're not going to be covering skin today. We're going to move those out of the way. So we're not going to cover skin today, but we are going to start to mix up some of the colors and show you what they are. Now I've got two other bottles here, as you guys saw on my desk. One is an additive and one is a retarder. And I'll go back to that camera real quick. You guys can see that we have the retarder in this one, and what that does is it retards the drying time of your acrylic paint. It's an additive for increasing the working or drying time of acrylic paints. So that's it in a nutshell. Now what this stuff is that you add it to paint to improve the flow for brush and for deeper staining effects. So what this does is it kind of thins it down a little bit. Do not swallow this stuff. Don't get it in your eyes. Either one of these, don't get them in your eyes. They're both considered an irritant. This one's considered a poison. If you happen to ingest the additive, make sure that you call poison control. But I don't think anybody's going to be sitting around drinking additive. And you don't need very much of this to thin out your paints, and I'm going to show you that today as well. So moving on, let's talk about brushes. What brushes do you need? Well, I have a little jar of brushes here, and these 5 brushes are really the only brushes I ever use. Sometimes I will bring a stippling brush or something along that line. And we're going to start with my biggest brush here, which is a 1/2 inch by Testors. This is a 1/2 inch black bristle brush. It's great for doing larger areas. In the case of Pennywise here, I would use this to do the bulk of the texture on the costume because it does cover so well. Then we get into, this is a 5-0, so this is a really, really fine brush. I use this brush for doing eyes or doing very fine detail work. You don't have to necessarily go to a 5-0 brush. A 3-0 brush is just fine as well. And this is a MX brush. This first one was a Testors brush, Testors Model Paints. You guys might know those guys. The next brush that I'm going to pull out here, this is an American Painter's brush. This is a number 2. This is a good brush for your all-around painting. It has a fairly flat tip to it, so it's something that I would definitely use in doing my painting. So smaller areas, say the hair, maybe the cap and around the fur on his hat, the area around Pennywise's face, and I may actually even use this brush to do the face, the general painting on the face as well. What is this one? This is a 0 brush, another very fine brush if you want to do good detail. It's one that I recommend. And then finally I have a number 1, and again this is a small brush. It doesn't have, there's not a lot of bristle there. You can find these brushes at any good art store. If you're interested, you can get a variety of them from any hobby store. These ones I bought, we've got a 0 golden. This is a synthetic brush. Then we have a sable round brush, which is my 000. We also have a 3/8 camel hair brush. And then finally we have a number 2 golden synthetic round brush. So 5 brushes in total. This one actually came from this set because my other one was bad. What you can do when your brushes get bad, this is a good example, this number 2. It's starting to lose some of its flatness. I don't know how well you guys can see that. Starting to lose some of its flatness and getting around. What I will eventually do with this brush is I'll trim it down a little bit, and then I'll start to use it as a stippling brush. So it comes in real handy for that. Now these brushes are all available again at any good art store or any hobby store, any well-stocked hobby store. So once again, let me go through the brushes. This is the brush set I recommend that you have to get started with. A 000 red sable, a 0 synthetic round, a number 2 golden synthetic round, a 3/8 camel hair flat, and finally a 1/2 inch flat wide black bristle. And you can get all those again at any good hobby store. How to take care of your brushes. Let's get into that real quick. You'll notice that I have this little paint pot here. Now this paint pot is available from Citadel. It is a Citadel branded paint pot. It is nice because it will hold your brushes in the top. You can see there's a little area there that'll hold the brushes. This is made by Citadel for Games Workshop. You can find these on Amazon. You can find them on at any Games Workshop store or any good gaming store. They are a very good little paint pot. Hopefully they're still available. And what happens is your brushes fit into the little holders. Now, this was designed for the Citadel brushes, but most other brushes will fit in there just fine. One thing you don't want to do with your brushes is put them point down like that. If you do that, what tends to happen is if there is enough room, or if the shaft of the paintbrush is not wide enough to fit into these holes, it will go all the way down to the bottom, and then what it'll do is it'll start to bend the tip of your brush. And once your brush bends, you'll never get it back to straight. Now I've got a little bit of water here. I'm just going to bring that into the shot. So this is just plain tap water. How I clean my brushes is I will bring them back and forth like so. You can buy a commercial brush cleaner. I have one at home, which I typically use, and it helps to keep, it's basically a softener, and what it does, it helps to keep the tip on your brush, and it helps to keep your brush in good shape for a long period of time. Now I've got a fairly decent point on that brush now. I know you can't really see that because I can't get close with that camera anymore, but it's fairly decent for when I want to paint. Now some people hold their paintbrushes, and here's some good etiquette. Some people will hold their paintbrushes way up high, like Bob Ross. If you've ever watched Bob Ross and his Happy Little Clouds, he holds his brushes way up at the top, and he will do this. He will reach out with his arm fully extended. When you're painting small things like some of the stuff that we have in the background, or even Pennywise, you want to get that brush almost like a pen, like you would be writing with a pen, and that's going to give you your stability, part of your stability. The other part of stability, if you're like me, I've been painting for many years, and I tend to shake as I get older. I shake more often. So what I will do is I will bring my elbows close to my body and on the table, and I'll almost sit right up to the table. That way I've got 2 points of contact with my elbow. I will rest my painting hand either on the model or on my other hand. And that will allow me to have a lot more brush control when I am doing smaller areas. Like the lips, for instance, in Pennywise's case, and some of the smaller details. I will come around and I will use a brush like this, and you can see I don't shake nearly as much as if I was trying to do this. You can see I shake a lot more when I'm doing that. But to get control over your painting, especially if you're new to painting, get those elbows in nice and tight. You don't have to bring them together, but bring them in nice and tight to either side of your body. Rest your elbows on the table, bring your hands together, and just work your way around the figure, okay? Any questions?
Lots of comments, not many questions. You're being very thorough.
What comments?
Phil says the Master's Brush Cleaner is very good for cleaning and extending brush life. I never heard
It
of it
is.
before, so I put a link down there.
It is. It's actually, it's the stuff that I didn't bring in today. I have it at home.
So he's mentioned that the Master's Brush Cleaner is really good.
Yep.
I've never seen it myself.
I'll bring it in for Friday. You'll see it on Friday.
Just some comments about how well Amazon is stocked with brushes.
Amazon has a great stock of brushes.
I don't know why Jerry said this, but he says old people, glasses, light, and headlamp.
Absolutely. I know exactly what Jerry's talking about there. I have a pair of those electronic magnifying goggles. They're good for electronics, but they're also great for painting. They're really inexpensive. They're about $10. You put them on your head, you flop them down, it makes you look like a really old person like myself.
So is spit. Your wife, she says, so is spit.
Yes, spit is also very good. And my wife used to give me heck for this all the time because I'd come out of my painting room when I was painting miniatures for Games Workshop, and I'd have little streaks of paint on my lip because I typically would clean my brush, and without thoroughly cleaning it, I would take it just to keep that end, and I would put it in my mouth and give it a little twist. And I still do that today. I'm trying not to do that as often, but you can do the same thing with your fingers. Just take your brush and just roll it between your fingers as you draw it back. And you'll do that same thing. For many, many years, I've always, to keep that point on my brush, I always stuck it in my mouth. Now, these little plastic sleeves that come on paintbrushes, most of the finer tip paintbrushes will have them. Hold on to them because they are very good at protecting your brushes. Even if you put your brushes in water and you don't want to bend the tip, let me go back to my camera here and I'll show you what I mean. You can see now that I've got that inside the water, and I actually have that plastic piece on.
That's a great idea.
It's just a little hack. Then you can take your paper towel. And just take your brush and just slowly draw it back to get off any of that excess water, and always be turning that brush, okay? And that way your brush will just stay fine. If you want, just blow the excess water out of there and then toss that back into the little plastic sleeve that 90% of brushes come with them, and most people just throw them out. I think they're a great idea because, again, you can stick your brush in water and not worry about if you forget. You can stick it in there and it won't bend the tip, which is something you don't want to have happen. We talked about that. So what is this? This is just plain water. Will I add anything to plain water when I'm cleaning my brushes? Sometimes I will. If I'm doing a really coarse cleaning of my brushes, sometimes I will use Windex. I will put just a little bit of Windex in with my water, and then I don't put them in my mouth, of course, because the taste of Windex is horrible. Call poison control. But put a little bit of Windex in with your water if you want to give your brushes a good cleaning. And if you're doing a lot of painting, I recommend that you do that quite often.
Got a question?
Yes.
Richard would have a question from Ports. How could I get prototypes made with glossy PLA? With ABS and acetone vapors are fine, but with PLA. So he's looking how do you gloss a PLA print?
How do you gloss a PLA print? Well, that's a real tough one. There are a couple of ways I've heard about to gloss your prints without adding anything to them. And if we look at these benchies, we did a couple of tests. And let me go back to the camera over here. it's kind of off the topic, but on this benchy here, we used a heat treat to try and smooth out the layer lines and get it a little more glossy. Didn't seem to work. It was garbage. Then we went to using a product called XTC, and you can see that the light is really, oh geez, I'm not even on that camera. Okay, going back to the, here we go.
Pulling a Frank over there.
I'm pulling a Frank over here, that's what I'm doing. So on this benchy, we heat treated it using a heat gun. That was one of the methods we recommended, and we did a whole episode on this, on how to finish your PLA prints or get them glossy. And unfortunately, heat treating doesn't work, so that's garbage. Secondly, we used XTC. Now this is a brush-on material, which if you're going to finish your prints, you can sand this material to give it a tooth and then paint right over it. It will accept paints. XTC is a two-part epoxy that you mix up, or resin, and you brush it on your model, and then you just let it dry, and it will give you that nice, smooth, glossy look. But finally, on this guy, I'll go to the side that's actually smooth, what we did on this one was we just took some higher grit sandpaper. We started with 220, and we went all the way up to 1000 grit, and we wet sanded this. Now it's dull, it's not bright, but you can bring out a bit of a shine just by using some Brasso on the plastic once you've sanded it out, and it will give it a little bit more of a shine. I hope that answered your question.
And how about priming PLA? So priming, once you got your print done, what's your best way to prime?
The best way to prime a print like the one that I have in my hand, and this has been primed. You can see on the bottom that we didn't prime the bottom, so you can see that there is the color of the raw PLA. But all we did was we used just a normal primer, and the primer that we used is Duplicolor's filler primer. And you can find this at any good automotive store. In Canada, the best place to find it is Canadian Tire. You can find it at Walmart in the States. Pep Boys may have it. But any good filler primer is a good primer to use when you are priming your figures. Now, that being said, you don't want to do a heavy spray coat. You want to do it in very light coats, much like I did with Pennywise. I just did a quick light once over, which allowed me to see where all of the flaws are in the print that I have to go back in and maybe touch up and sand down a little bit. On the top of the head, you guys can't see that very well on the screen, mind you, but I can see the rings from where the print lines, from where it was doing the fill-in on the top of the model. The rest of the model seems very, very nice in terms of print lines. It's actually fairly smooth. Even the face is fairly smooth. But I will go back in with some sandpaper, and I will, and in this case, I won't go to a really low grit like 80, like I've used on other projects. I will probably start at around 220, and I will wet sand all of the areas I need to wet sand on Pennywise. And I also found that I left a little bit of material back here in the back that I didn't get out when I was cleaning up the print. So that showed me that. So what priming does is it really, first of all, it gives you a foundation for your paint that you're going to put on the model. Secondly, what it does is it allows you to see any flaws in the model that you can fix before you go into doing your final paint. And on Wednesday's show, you're going to actually see me start to apply color to Pennywise. I'm going to start with priming to show you guys the proper technique to prime, and then we are going to show you how to start laying down color and how to mix some color. But let's go back to talking about these three primary colors real quick, because I said I was going to show you how to mix colors, right? So we've got these three colors here. These are your three primaries, and these are what we're going to use. So I'm going to squeeze out a little bit of yellow, if I don't get it all over myself. Squeeze out just a little bit of yellow. There we go. The funny thing about Liquitex is they tend to have a lot of air in them. and they can explode in your face. So watch that. So we got a little bit of blue there. Make sure that these seat properly. When you're closing the lid, make sure that they seat properly, because if they don't, your paint will leak out, it'll harden up, and then you'll be SOL. Like you can see there on that one, I didn't clean that one very well. I got a big glob of paint that I shouldn't have. So here we have red, yellow, and blue, the three primary colors. Now if I take, let's take this brush here, clean it up a little bit. It does look pink on screen, but it actually is red. It's primary red. And there I go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of red and a little bit of blue, and I'll mix those two together. If I take a little bit more red here, my red's kind of dried up a little bit. Oh yeah, I really need to get some. You can see we start to get almost a purple color there as we mix the red and the blue. It becomes a purple color. So we mix yellow and blue. We'll take, get all that paint out of there. And you see I'm not stabbing my brush into the paper, I'm actually dragging it across. And that's what you want to do to keep a point on your brush. So now we're going to take some of that yellow and some blue. And you see we get a nice green. And these are what we call secondary colors. And we're going to take some more of that red. And we're going to take some of the yellow again. And mix those two together. And you can see we get orange. So there are our three colors and our three secondary colors. So out of those, you can mix any color that you want. If we decided to take some of the green and some of the yellow, or some of the green and some of the orange, we'd come up with a brand new color. And you see we almost get a burnt sienna there. It's kind of brownish. Now we'll take some of the yellow, or some of the orange, actually, and we'll take some of that purple, and now we get more of a raw sienna. Okay? And then finally, we'll take some of the green and some of the purple. And we'll make our last color. Yeah, I need more purple, so I'm going to take a little bit of blue, a little bit of red. Yeah, that red, I got to really mix that up better. Yeah, it's really globby. I haven't used these in a long, long time. So what was I mixing there? Yeah, it's from Pennywise. So we need a little bit more green in there. That's what we were doing, right? Green? Green and purple?
Yes.
So we're going to mix up a little bit more of that green and purple. And there we go. So take... We all float down here. That's Pennywise's big claim to fame. So we're going to take that green in with the purple. And you see we almost get a hunter green out of it. You see that? I don't know how well you guys can see that on camera, but we almost get a hunter green out of it.
You can see it fairly well, but the shades are quite different on screen than they are.
Now, if I want to shade these or I want to lighten them up, I take a little bit of white, not on my finger, and I put a little white on there. scrub my brush out here a little bit. Now if I take that yellow and I want to lighten it up a little bit, take a little bit more yellow there. I can take some of the white and I can naturally lighten the yellow. You see how now it becomes more of a pastel kind of yellow? And I can do that with any color in the spectrum. I mean, I can do it with red, I can do it with any of the colors that we mix, the raw sienna, the burnt sienna. So, and it will naturally light them. So white is a good base for naturally lightening any color.
Oh, yeah.
However, black, although it can naturally darken any color, here's what happens when you add black to red, for instance. I was going to see something pretty amazing here. Oh, quite a bit of black came out there. Oh. Okay, so we're going to clean our brush one more time. So we know that black and white will make gray. But if we take red and a little bit of black and we mix those together, you can see how the red doesn't really look like red anymore. It almost looks like a grape color, a dark grape color. It really doesn't lighten it naturally. What I would normally do if I wanted to lighten that naturally, if I wanted to lighten the red naturally, I might take a little bit of blue, just a very, or darken, pardon me, I'd take a little bit of blue and a lot more red, and I would, well, in this case I'm making more purple because there we go, well that's more red in there. You can see that it's darkened it. It has made it a little bit more purple. I'm definitely using the wrong brush for this. I should be using a wider brush, but now let's take a little bit of that black and I'll show you again what I mean. The black almost makes it a brownish, and it's really not a good base. You can naturally lighten them. Again, buy yourself a color wheel. Get a color wheel.
Question?
Yes.
Using those compositions of paint on a plastic object,
Yes.
in ABS, advise in order to use transparent spray to consolidate and give light to the color.
Give light to the color. I'm not sure that I quite understand.
So you know how like cars, I think I get it. You know, like on a car you get that.
The shimmer?
You get the depth of color where they use coats of lacquer or whatever.
Right,
I mean,
lacquer. Okay.
Or something like that. You know, they use like a transparent type of paint in layers with the color to give it depth. So when you see like a cherry red Camaro,
right,
the paint looks deep. It's not just
yeah.
color.
What you want,
might be what he's getting at.
If that's what we're getting at, if we want to start with a darker tone, and that's where we start to get into, let me go back to my camera here for a second. If you want to get depth in your color, and I'm going to be showing that when we do Pennywise on Wednesday, how you're going to do that is you're going to start with your darkest color first, then you're going to build up the color over gradually. And you're going to start with the darkest red that you can find. Let's say you want to make a cherry red car. It's because, you know, they were all the rage, right? Cherry red cars. So we would take our darkest shade of red and we'd lighten that shade up over time. So we would do a base coat of dark red. Then we would do a lighter coat of another red. And then start working our way up to the sort of the poppy cherry red color that we wanted. And then we would lacquer that. And you would see that depth through the lacquer. And I'll demonstrate that when I can actually get into the painting tutorial part of this. And you'll see what I mean about layering your colors. Because in Pennywise's clothing, there are a lot of lines and a lot of folds, that sort of thing. And his top is sort of a a pastel green, a very, very light pastel green. But there are darker folds. Like you can see the folds down in here. And let me go back to this camera. You can see that there's folds in the fabric and there's lines, seam lines in his tunic. And that we really want to pull that out of there and make it look like it's cloth. And I'm going to show you how to do that by layering color on Wednesday's show. So that pretty much talks about color science. Now, I was asked about airbrushing, so I'm going to quickly touch on airbrushing, an Airbrush Cleaner in specifically. What do I use for Airbrush Cleaner? Well, I have used Medea Airbrush Cleaner. I have used it. I got this as a sample a long time ago from Iwata. It's a very good airbrush cleaner. You can go and buy commercial airbrush cleaners just about anywhere. But you can also make your own. And making your own actually is much better for you than going and spending $7 for a bottle like this to make airbrush cleaner. Several things you can use for airbrush cleaner. You can use Windex. And I've used Windex many, many times to clean my airbrush. All you simply do is just put a little bit in your cup and spray it through. Now, the problem with Windex is that it has chemicals in it. There's ammonia in Windex. So when you're airbrushing and cleaning your airbrush, this can be an irritant. The ammonia can be an irritant to you. So in order to make an all-natural airbrush cleaner, I will use distilled water and isopropyl alcohol. And usually it's going to be, I believe it is 80 parts water to 20 parts isopropyl alcohol. And that's all natural. It's not going to irritate your lungs. It's not going to irritate your eyes.
And you can drink it.
And you can drink it. Well, I wouldn't drink it, but you can. So 80% water, distilled water. A 4-liter jug of distilled water at the grocery store is going to cost you a couple of bucks. A bottle of isopropyl alcohol like this is going to cost you probably around $5 or $6. And for less than $10, you can make liters and liters and liters of airbrush cleaner. I go through airbrush cleaner very, very quickly. So this is the way to go. Now you can also take, if you really want to get it clean, 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 you can also add a couple of drops of Dawn dish detergent. Not any brand of dish detergent, specifically Dawn, D-A-W-N, dish detergent. Just a couple of drops, that's all you need. And then you can put that into your airbrush cleaner. It will, like you can see in this one, maybe you can't, but in this one you can see there's a little bit of foaming when I shake it up. That's because there is a soap agent in this aerosol or in this cleaner. It doesn't tell you exactly what's in this airbrush cleaner, but it does say fast-acting, odorless, environmentally safe, ready to use. If you get it in your eyes, wash your eyes right away. This will help clean clogged airbrushes as well. Same with the stuff that I've just told you about. 90% distilled or 80% distilled water, 20% alcohol, 99% isopropyl alcohol, and a couple of drops of dish detergent to say, what is this? This is 765 mils. If you've got an old Windex bottle like this kicking around, throw it in there. And you can do the math. 765, 80% of 765 is going to be water. And then just label it airbrush cleaner. Any more questions?
No, just a quick comment, or yeah, I guess in a way he's looking for an opinion about his, Alfred is looking for an opinion about his process. When he first prints the piece to eliminate any roughness, then he applies the color, and then finally he uses a transparent lacquer to give the shine.
Yep.
So he's asking if that's right or wrong.
That is absolutely right. What I would do first, though, go back to your print. this is where you're going to spend the most time is in the prep work. The painting work is going to be the quickest thing you're going to do other than printing and prepping your model for paint. It's all in the details of the paint, but it also is in the preparation, and that goes for anything that you're going to paint. You should always sand your PLA, ABS, PETG, whatever you're painting, and you can paint it all with these paints, these types of paints that I talked about today. All of that can be painted with the same type of paint. Make sure that you go in, and once you put your first layer of primer on, put a very light coat of primer on, and you're going to be able to see all of the defects that you have to go back and clean up. Like in this case, I know when I was looking at the model originally, I couldn't see any of the really fine wisps of plastic hair that were on this model. But now that I've primed it, I can see everything. And once you do that, you're going to prime, you're going to sand, you're going to prime, you're going to fill, you're going to sand, you're going to prime, you're going to fill, you're going to sand until you've got it to the where you want it to be. Now, in terms of filler, and I've talked about this before, when you get to the stage where you're putting filler on your primer, you want to use just a spot putty, an automotive spot putty. You can use Milliput, which I've talked about in the past. Where is my other putty? I had it here. It is gone. It's gone. It's gone away. I did have that putty here somewhere. I don't know where it went to. It's gone. Okay. But you can use Milliput. I would use Milliput prior to priming. This is a 2-part epoxy filler. But if you use the 3M automotive spot putty, which you can find again anywhere, all you got to do is squeeze a little bit out on some paper, take your spatula, fill in those little ding holes, and then come back and then sand them out, give it a prime, and that way you're going to get the best finish on your model from beginning to end, okay? So with this model in particular that we're looking at, I do have to sand a few areas. Fortunately, I do not have to do any fill work on this, because I think by doing any fill work on this, it's just going to take away from some of the details that are on there. Again, this model is available from Innov 3D. Innov 3D is a full-service 3D modeling outlet. They will look at your models. They will go through your models with you. They also have a selection of models that they do themselves. They've designed and done themselves that you can buy and download. And this is just one of them. This is the Christmas Pennywise. They sent me this model. So I haven't printed out the base, and I haven't printed out the gifts that go on the base with Pennywise, but I will eventually do that, and then we'll see the whole thing when it's all done. But in terms of this particular model, again, I have to go back and I have to sand out some areas, and I'm going to wet sand this. And the sandpaper I'm going to use is just a wet, dry sandpaper that you can find at any good automotive supply store. In Canada, that would be Canadian Tire. In the US, pardon me, Pep Boys in the US. And you can probably find them at Home Depot or Lowe's. You can find some of that stuff at Home Depot and Lowe's as well.
Question.
Yeah.
Can you mix a color also to Milliput so that it looks like the PLA? So can you mix
paint into the Milliput? I have not tried it. I don't think you can, because the Milliput is a very stiff putty when it's done. I suppose you could mix it in with a glue if you wanted to use a glue to fill your PLA prints. The problem lies in that I don't think there are any really good, and I could be wrong about this, I've never found them, mind you, is a good filler that you can add a color to. Typically, for most modelers, what they will do is they'll just buy Milli Putt, or they'll buy some Squadron green or white putty, or they'll buy, you know, the automotive stuff that I use here, or any of those kinds of things, and they will use that to fill their holes. So can you paint, can you add color to them? I don't think you can, but you can go over with a fine brush like we've been talking about today. You can take a fine brush, and if you're using, let's say, a gray like Wonder Woman in the background, I can match with black and white. I can match that gray pretty easily, and I can just go over and paint what I've filled in, and you won't really, you shouldn't really notice it. What is he talking about? What am I missing?
No, that's exactly. I was trying to figure out where he was going with that. But
okay.
That's what he's trying to do. He's trying to finish the model without having to paint the whole model.
Gotcha. Yeah. So get some black, get some white, or depending on the color of PLA you're using, try and find a color that's close to it in a craft paint, and go ahead and just paint over where you filled in, and that should keep you from having to paint the whole model. And if you do a good enough job, you'll never notice. From a distance, you'll never notice. Any other questions?
No.
Anything on Facebook, question-wise? No. Okay, so
have you tried wood putty filler?
Wood putty filler I have tried. I don't like wood putty filler, and I'll tell you why. I know a lot of people that have used it on doing their helmets and their masks and that sort of thing. The reason I don't like wood putty filler is because A, it doesn't stick very well to plastic, first and foremost. And secondly, it can crumble over time, which the putties that I use, like the Milli Putt and the automotive, chances of them crumbling over time is a lot less. First and foremost, what they will do is they will crack if the model is mishandled. They will crack first before, you know, crumbling and falling out of the gap that you're trying to fill. The other thing that you can do, and we've got an episode that talks completely about filling your model, and I showed you that you can use CA glue with a little bit of baking powder, baking soda. Pardon me, baking soda. You can use a little bit of baking soda and a little bit of CA glue in any of the gaps, and that will fill them in as well. And you won't even see the baking soda in there. It still dries fairly clear. So that's one way that you can do it. Any other questions?
No, Geraldine says everything's at Walmart, though we don't have to shop anywhere else.
Yep, most everything that you can find is at Walmart. So with that said, this has been a long episode today. We've almost run an hour today. I don't know if we can or not. I didn't get a yay or a nay on that. Okay. I will try and get you guys a special thing by Wednesday. I will talk to somebody and we'll see about Wednesday's show. In any case, for now, on Wednesday we're going to paint. We're going to prime and paint Pennywise. We are going to start our painting on Pennywise, and on Friday we're going to finish up with the details on Pennywise, and I'm going to show you guys all how to do that. And until then, we are only four, count them, 4 subscribers away from reaching our 250 subscriber goal on YouTube, and I couldn't be more excited. We had just a huge crop of people come in over the weekend, and thank you very much for taking the time to watch these shows, whether you're watching them in the live stream or in the restream afterwards or in the rebroadcast afterwards. I really thank you for your time and coming in and watching what we have to say. And again, if you haven't already, please subscribe, hit that notification button down below, and get notified every time we do a brand new episode. Now, before I go, I have to thank spool3d.ca. Spool3d.ca, print it right, print it with spool3d.ca. They've got everything from printers to filaments to all the parts that you could possibly need to even build your own printer. Everything from V-notch extrusion and open build parts right through to the smallest little nozzle that you could possibly find. And again, if you haven't yet and you want to, please go and check out our Patreon. The link is down below. that's how we can afford to bring you this show. Spool 3D gives us the space to use, and everything else comes out of my pocket. So thank you very much. For those of you that have already signed up to Patreon to help us out, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. With the way that YouTube's going, we're not going to get any monetization anytime soon. So I do appreciate those people who have signed up to help us out on Patreon. And if you want to help us out, the link is down below in the description on YouTube. And again, I thank you for your time today. We'll see you again on Wednesday when we start really digging into painting. Until then, you guys have yourselves a great week.